today is a good day to talk about Havana, Cuba. And when you talk about Havana, Cuba, anyone who talks about Cuba, any documentary, any YouTube video, they always get it wrong. And I'm going to get it wrong too, because that is what we all do. Because it just seems that no matter how people try to look at the country, there's just so much to unpack, so much to cover, that no matter which angle you decide to take to talk about Cuba or Havana or Santiago, Guantanamo Bay, and all these other places in Cuba, you just can never tell a comprehensive story. For this reason, we're just going to look at some of the biggest problems facing Cuba and why the story is just never that simple. First of all, when people say go to Cuba, and people are like, oh, go to Cuba, it's such a beautiful country. I would say some of the beaches in Cuba, Havana, are absolutely stunning. I mean, this is something, it's not like, the south of France, Saint-Tropez, or all these other beautiful beaches in Thailand. It's just one of those places where you go, you're like, wow, this is the Cuba they don't show you. And that is an interesting thing, that daily life goes on. Sometimes people say, well, it's not that bad in Cuba, so chill. And others are saying, you don't know what you're talking about, that life in Cuba is just so hard. So there is never a middle ground, because the reality on the ground is that there is no middle ground. And that is something interesting. For example, a lot of people, when they go to Cuba, you see all these classic cars. And you're thinking, oh, this is nice. And this also leads to titles of videos like, oh, Cuba, the country stuck in the 50s. And of course, those cars are something of a novelty. And if you go to some car shows, you see like Chevrolet from the 50s, and it's absolutely immaculate. It's nice. It just gives you a sort of a nostalgia of a gone by days where, the cars were just big and, it means opulence and all that stuff. But that said, with the problem with Cuba, if you look at some of the stories, someone said, look, this is a Chevrolet, but it's got a Mercedes engine, or it's got a Nissan engine. And this part here is from a motorcycle, and the seats are from, and you're thinking, wow. Now, I think the interesting thing is, one of the biggest problems is that those classic cars, American cars that were stuck in the 50s, tell a story. That the progress, newer cars coming into the country have not been easily accessible. And the way people look at it is that if you're a tourist, you ride in those cars, you pay, I don't know how many pesos or dollars to ride around and visit the city. What you're seeing is not a reflection of reality. And even when people tell you about their daily realities, you might be sitting in those cars being driven by a medical doctor. And that is another problem people have said. You see, you're riding around in those cars, and you've been driven by a doctor. And first of all, some people have said, look, this is one of the reasons I don't want to visit Cuba, that the poverty is just so in your face. And the stories people tell you just mean, you just feel so uncomfortable. And people say, I'd rather not go back. And then the counter argument to that is that, look, chill, calm down. Your dollars coming in with tourism dollars is actually good for the people, because then if say, for example, the average salary apparently is between, say, $20 and $30 per month. And then if you come in and you're able to get a ride, I don't know, for $5, and then you give someone a tip of $5, to you, that is nothing. But what you're actually doing is probably paying for someone's, monthly salary just because of that. And that seems like it's good. It feels like charity. But people local people don't see it that way. It's just business. And this brings us to the idea of hustle in Cuba, Havana mostly, is that all those cars are cute. It tells you a story of bygone years, but it doesn't. It also tells you another story. that being stuck in the past is not a good thing, because then it means there is no progress, and it also shows you that it tells you the resilience of the people, that they really they're able to keep these cars going using all these type of means. Some of the drivers said, look, we're mechanics, we're engineers, we are tourism guide, we are whatever it takes basically to keep it going. And this life of hustle is something that permeates the society in Cuba, and it's especially seen in Havana. And that is a good thing, but it also creates something else, which a lot of people tend to see, is that because everyone is trying to hustle, and the system has been created in such a way that hustle is the lifeblood of the country, then you get scams. And the scams is like someone come, hey, hola amigo. I don't know what they say, but I'm just imagining that's the way it goes. Hey, hola amigo, you want a mojito? And you're like, oh, he's nice and friendly. These people are really friendly. And then before you know, you get scammed. And they take you to a restaurant or a place, and then they say, oh, you want a mojito, which is probably, $1 or $1, $2 or something like that. And then they say $10, and you think, what? Oh, and then if you don't want to pay, they go all crazy on you, and they threaten you and all that, and it just ruins your experience. And you think, oh, you see, and this is where the generalization come. Don't go to Cuba. It's dangerous. Everyone's trying to scam you. So, and then others are saying you need to you need to do your research. Don't just follow anyone who's trying to be friendly to you or who's trying to be nice. Hey, by the way, the golden rule of travel is this: if you're walking on the street, someone says, "Hey, I can show you this," it's a no. There is no but. Oh, he looks nice, she looks nice. Don't do it, and that's it. You see. So the hustle lifestyle that's created by the hardship that people face just means scam is common. And when you think about it, people are saying, well, don't put it as if only Cuba, Havana, all these other places have those problems. You go to New York, people scam you. You go to Italy, people scam you. But by the way, you go to what's it called, the place in Italy where the water is, Venice. There is a woman who follows, she puts it on the internet, pickpocket, she shouts, and basically there are scams, pickpockets. Everyone is just basically out to scam you, because that's what life is all about. So it's not really unique to Cuba, but I think the difference in Cuba is that people see the people, you go there and you see that most of the people are really friendly and nice. So you forget there is another reality, that there's hardship, and within the hardship, a lot of people are really out to make a dollar or two, and it doesn't matter how they get that. And then you have cigars in this, I don't know, the Cuban cigars, and you're thinking, why is it so popular? And I think it's the glamorous lifestyle of the 50s and, the 60s. And there was a film, I think, called Hotel Rwanda. And there was a scene in the film where it says, look, rich people, they have a lot of money. So when they come, you want to give them something they cannot really buy or purchase. So he says, what we do is that we send people, or we import cigars, and then we have it in stock. And then when we want to impress them, we pull out a package, and we say, look, this is for you, Mr. X, real Cuban cigar and all that. And he's like, oh, how did you get that? We've got our connections. And so it is exclusive. And now, of course, there are other people making cigars, but for whatever reason, Cuban cigars seems to be, the gold standard of what it means to be refined and all that. And now a lot of those, it's a source of income for the country. You've got fields of people of cigars, and they make it and they roll them, and then they send them outside, and they're very popular. It brings money into the country, so that's good. And they said, if you want the finest mojito, go to Cuba. Other Latin American country would beg to disagree, but that is a conversation for another time. Everyone wants to say, we've got the best food, we've got the best mojito. But anyway, any country where people say you should go and have a mojito, and they do it on a regular basis, they'll after a while it gets really good. Anyway, so you have that. Now, another thing people talk about Cuba, Havana, is that it's relatively safe. That you can go there, walk around the streets, and have a good time. And you're thinking, wow, that is just almost counterproductive. That in a country where poverty is rather rife, people are saying it's safe, and then others say, yeah, it is safe because the government wants tourists to come into the country, and because of the tourism, they don't want you to go and start messing with the tourists, because then the reputation goes out that it's not safe. People stop coming, and that's not good. They're not bringing their dollars in. So apparently, if you mess with a tourist there, they especially in the center, the government will come at you. That's the story anyway. How true that is, it doesn't mean you don't you're not going to get scammed, but violence against tourists apparently is not common, which is a good thing, because it means then people take a selfie, put it on Instagram, and say Cuba is the best place, go and visit, and it's relatively cheap. So with that, there are a lot of good things people talk about Cuba when they say, free healthcare. You think, America looking at you, and then free education looking at you. But then others are saying, look, what's the point of having free education and healthcare if you can't eat? So that is just counterproductive. There's not enough food. When you're hungry, the derivative of 2x is not a really big problem. It's not a priority. You just feed me something, give me something to eat. And that is a problem. And that people are saying, look, yeah, it's nice to have all those, but it's just not good enough. You need to give people more so that people would have a better life. And food is just the basics. And if you're not getting a lot of food, that is not good. So that is one of those are some of the issues that people have mentioned about Cuba. Now let's get to the story of the biggest problems. I think one of the biggest problems that's going to come, it's not there yet, is this. Like in most places, sooner or later, the current system, the aging government and all that, it would change. Newer generation would come, even if it just seems like it's not going to happen. Take, for example, the Soviet Union, USSR, what it used to be called. It just seems that it was such a block. It's been around for such a long time that it's never going to go down. And then it went down, and all the other, part of countries that were part of the union decided, look, cheerio, adios. I don't know how you say it in Russian, but you get the point. They all wanted out of the union, and they left. And then they had other issues, but they left. So the system collapsed. And I think sooner or later, it's going to happen, because it's just one of those things that you can't just keep it going forever and ever. A new generation will come, the wind will change, and then it just, it falls. And now, when that happens, I think those people who are actually having a good time, because this is something they don't tell you in Cuba, is that there are a lot of well-to-do people. Not everyone's poor. That is just hidden. There are a lot of people with money, like in every country. When you go to Paris, London, the Netherlands, or you go to the poor areas, and people are poor. But then you go to the rich area, is like a different world altogether. Cuba has the same thing. There are really, really rich neighborhoods, but nobody goes there because there is no story to tell. Rich people, so boring. Let's move on. And I think that what's going to happen is that once the system opens up, all the center and all that will get gentrified, and the poor people who are suffering now will still be marginalized and pushed away, and they would not be part of the wealth or the people getting rich later. It's just going to be the same thing. And oh, so when you think about it now, it just seems everyone's poor, but that's not the case. So I think for me, that's one of the biggest problem, that when that happens, those who are suffering now, when the reaches or the time comes where the country is going to be more prosperous, I think they'll continue to suffer, because a lot of the people who are well-to-do and well-connected will just move in and take over everything and just become richer. So that is going to be, I think, the biggest problem that is going to face the country. It's just inevitable that the things will change, because time is just the way times affect everyone and everything. So now what's been happening is that people are saying the situation is getting worse, and you think, how could it get worse when it's already not great? And apparently Cuba is experiencing the same thing that happened during the pandemic, where the pandemic basically stopped a lot of people from flying, so Cuba was impacted. And after the pandemic, people lost their jobs, so the economy wasn't stable. The war started in Ukraine. You get the problem. Now people are less tourism. That is not good for the common people who depend on tourism, and even the businesses. So you have a situation where the situation wasn't great, but now it's just worse, because less tourists are coming into the country, and that is a bad thing. And now, talking about less tourism, there is also something else that tourism creates that people don't talk about, is that everything is for sale in Cuba. And I'm talking about women, and because women sell themselves. But apparently, the story about that free trade, women trading in themselves, was something that was it was, I think, well over 100,000 people, well in the 50s or even 40s. And when there was a regime change, they said, "Oh, Cuban women, we should retrain them and get them into factory jobs and all that." But it is just a nice source of income, and it is said that over about almost 59% or almost 60% of those visiting Cuba are single men. And what are they there for? To look at the flowers? Apparently not, you see. And because it's it's a cheap way to get laid, and the promise of beautiful Cuban women, all that. So when the impact of this is that if you're getting less tourism, if you're a woman in that line of business and you're getting less customers, you see where the problem is. It means you can't afford food. And even before that, it was said that, mostly black women and mestizos, like mixed race women, were the ones mostly used in this type of trade. So you get all that, the dark side, basically, of life in Cuba. And it's not only Cuba, by the way, the same thing in Dominican Republic and all these other, in Jamaica, the film where Stella got her groove back and all that. Kenya has the same problem, or anyway. So that is another part of life, and everything is linked. So less tourism, less money coming in, more people suffering. So but then you might think it's exploitation, but people wouldn't have to do that if the economy was good, if life was good. So that is not a great thing. Now let's talk about something where people blame game. People say, "Oh, yeah, blame the Cuban people, because if they're a bit more resilient, they would build their own economy, do business." But it's not that simple, because you can't do it. It's not like a free market. So you have the other thing where, like, blame the big country that's just embargo and all that, making life hard for people. And then people who have looked into the situation say, well, that's part of the problem, but it's not the main problem, because you could also do business with other countries. There are a lot of Brazil isn't too far. You could do business with all these other countries in the Caribbean or in South America, Central America. Mexico is big enough. You could do business with all those people there. Anyway, so why isn't it happening? But, well, because you're not allowed to talk about it. or else you go to prison. And that, so it just seems that there are a group of people well connected who are constantly doing something interesting. Is basically there's a black market, and the black market means prices are higher, and because prices are higher, well, someone is making a lot of money, and it's just that simple. It's basic capitalism. So a lot of people would say, "Oh, it's a socialist country." It isn't. It's a capitalist country. It's just that you're not part of the of the elite who is able to make money out of it. It's just that simple. And it's the same thing with the U.S. But of course, the equality is getting bigger, and people are beginning to see it. But the reality is that the inequality is a bit in your face. And when you go to Cuba, you see all the buildings, dilapidated buildings, people living in, a lot of tiny houses that have been abandoned since the 50s. And you're thinking, how is that possible? And someone even made a comment that, look, if the situation is that bad in Cuba, why is it that you don't see a lot of homeless people when you go and visit? It's a valid observation, because in the US, you go to major cities where you've got a lot of wealth, but then you've got people living on the street. It doesn't make sense. And the simple answer is this, that you don't see people on the street because nobody wants to be on the street. And another thing is that because of the way society is structured, people live together in really compact locations where you have rooms, multiple people there, and everyone shares the same bathroom and toilet. So because of that, people, even people you would normally see on the street in the US, you would not see them in Cuba. And also, Cuba has something that basically, if you're suffering from mental health, you probably get sent into one of those institutions. If you're a criminal, you go to prison. And if you're poor, basically, you go and live on the floor, sleep on the floor somewhere with a group of other people. And so you're not on the street. That's why you don't see that level of so many people on the street. It's just that simple. It's the hidden face of poverty that a lot of people don't see. Now, what about the dilapidated buildings? Why isn't someone doing anything about it, cleaning it up? Well, because when you don't have food, the building looking pretty is not the priority. And I think this is something that a lot of people don't understand. For example, in the 30s and 40s, before paid holidays became a thing, a lot of people don't go on holidays because you don't have free time. So you just go to work, come back home, eat, sleep, go to work, come back home. On Sunday, you go to church and pray for, a divine intervention, which never comes. But that was just the life of people. And then when the middle class started to grow and make a lot of money and then have free time, then people started to, because the free time it gives you, where you're not constantly worrying about money, you're able to think about other things. I'm going to paint my building. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go sky jumping. I'm going to do all these other leisure activities that normally people didn't do because, well, you didn't have the time and money to be able to do that. The same thing with all the buildings. A lot of people just had issues, and their biggest worry wasn't, it's just about survival. You're in survival mode, and when you survival mode, that takes over everything. It takes over your mind, your life. It's just about, and every now and then people go to the beach, but then even that, you don't do that every day, because it means the little you've earned, it's just going to go, and because you're going to spend it and all that. But anyway, the point here is that all these buildings are abandoned because, the current system makes it almost impossible to do anything about it, and people don't have enough money to fix anything because of the reality of life. Now, there is something, I think about 6 months ago or less than a year ago, a story that happened in the supermarket, called the supermarket the third and the 70, like the tercera y setenta, and it says This supermarket opened in the, of course, in the nicest area of Havana, and a lot of people rushed in, and they were surprised to find that all the shelves were filled with really, really nice things. But the problem was that, oh, everything is in dollars, and people don't get paid in dollars when you work there, and some of the everything was expensive. But you still see people going in there and shopping and buying things. Even people even fought each other because they wanted something that was almost out, and then they didn't have enough change to pay people, and then they say, okay, how many okay, take this extra thing because we don't have change and all that. So but the point that people actually complain about that supermarket is this, that apparently it was so filled with a lot of the things that people don't normally have access to, and local people don't have enough money to go and buy. But then when you look at it, it seems that all the people, Cubans, still have money to buy there because everything was there. And that is the reality that people don't actually see, that people think everyone in Cuba is poor. I don't think so. No matter which country you go to, African countries where people think poverty is rife, and then you see poverty on the streets, people trying to survive. But then you step away from all that in your face poverty, and you go to another section, and you're like, wow, people with Mercedes and all that, and you think, is this the same Africa? Well, it is. And the same thing in India, where you have multi-millionaires, billionaires, and the houses are just like a few blocks away from the ghetto or the slums of Mumbai, you know, all that stuff. So the same thing in Cuba is that everyone is not poor. And this supermarket really goes to show you the reality on the ground, that yes, there are problems, but these problems doesn't affect everyone. And I think that is why it is very difficult when people are saying, oh, look, Cuba is very poor, people can't afford food, people can't afford this. Some people could. It's just that they're not the majority, and that is just the fact of life. So when you look at the bigger picture of Cuba, you look at the bigger picture, there is something else. You're thinking, what can be done about it? A lot of people have tried, but they failed. What have they done? That's caused something called a brain drain, where all the people who could afford it will get on a boat and just F off to the United States. And of course, when you get there, the diaspora there has been able to lobby the government to give you asylum, and then you get a status and you're able to work in the United States. So you've got that going, and people have said, of course, the problem with brain drain is that if all the educated people, or I'm not even all the educated, all the more resourceful people are wanting to leave the island, it becomes a problem, because you can't have a nation just full of what's it called, farmers or people working in cattle or in other things. You need a mixture of everything, and I think that is a problem that people are facing. And this brain drain, I think most of the people who were able to escape, most of them would send money back to the to relatives, and those relatives receiving money from the US are those who are well off, because you get money from, you get dollars. If someone is able to send you maybe $50 or $100 per month, basically it improves your quality of life compared to the local people who don't have that connection. So because of that, everyone wants to send a family member out, but of course, yeah, it's not that easy, and that is why apparently locals are not allowed to go on tour excursions on boats or with the other tourists, because the government is like, oh, if he goes, he might decide to start swimming and never come back. We don't want that. But then the funny thing is, like, the population is growing. I was surprised. I actually thought that Cuban population, because of everyone trying to leave, would be like 2 to 3 million. No, it's almost 12 million, 11, well over 11 million people. I was actually surprised to see that. Anyway, the whole point is this, that the story of Cuba is not a simple story to tell. There are too many moving parts. And something else a lot of people don't talk about is the fact that if there is no food shortage, power outage, or everything people complain about, that there are people living who are not really worried about food shortage, but they live in the rural areas. Of course, they don't have access to all the doctors and all these other things. But something they don't have is food shortage because they grow their own food. People in the city are the ones who complain most about this because you can't grow anything. You don't even know how to grow that. So anyway, the whole point is this. The biggest problem with Cuba is that it's easy to blame the outside factors. But I think the system is just designed in such a way that it's actually not broken. It's only broken if you're not part of the system, and that's it.